Okay, Texas and Oklahoma are officially invited to the SEC as the SEC presidents officially unanimously voted to invite Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC starting July 1st, 2025. Many people thought Texas A&M or Missouri was going to stop that. They weren't. It was known they were not going to stop it. They might have been talking big saying they were, but once Texas A&M got the phone call from the SEC, they probably changed their minds very quickly. But and recently Oklahoma and Texas both officially accepted the invitation from the Southeastern Conference to join starting July 1st, 2025. Obviously, this was money driven. The SEC would be making like a lot more money ha if they have these two schools in the conference. So I obviously think this is obviously money driven. I mean, of course, that both everybody would be making a lot more money of all who are involved. They would be making a lot more money if these two schools joined. And Oklahoma and Texas are both very historic programs. Texas is the most popular and most rich, I would say, school in the country. So obviously, the SEC will be making a lot more money with all the TV contracts and media and contracts and licensing that they can give out and advertise. So obviously, that's going to be a factor. I do see these two schools moving to get into the SEC as early as next season. I don't think they're going to be staying in the Big 12 playing 4 more years in the Big 12. That'd be just kind of awkward to do. The Big 12, them playing a Big 12 for 4 more years would kind of be awkward. You'd be playing this whole Big 12 schedule with all these Big 12 teams who know you're not going to be in the conference officially anymore. So I see them trying to get into the SEC quicker with them buying out their contract with the Big 12, and because it's $80 million per school, the SEC could possibly help Oklahoma and Texas with that buyout. Maybe SEC paying 25% or 35% and Texas and Oklahoma paying the rest. That could be a possibility, but I don't see them staying in the Big 12 for 4 more years. It's not going to be a thing they would do. They're going to I see them moving quickly to get into the SEC, and by next year, by the 2023 season, we could be seeing Oklahoma and Texas playing in the SEC with the full SEC schedule. The thing is, I don't know how Oklahoma and Texas are going to adjust to an SEC schedule. Obviously, Oklahoma has had their fair share of SEC games, and so has Texas. Oklahoma has not, Lincoln Riley specifically, has not done well against the SEC. I don't think he's won a single game against the SEC, except for that Florida game last year in the bowl game where they beat them. I think it was 55-20. That Oklahoma dominated a Florida team that gave Alabama a run for their money. Obviously, you can argue that Florida's team was not, their entire team was not there, the opt-outs, the injuries, but at the end of the day, the score showed Oklahoma scoring more points than Florida and them dominating Florida. So that's the only win I think Lincoln Riley has had against the SEC. You know, they played Alabama in the college football playoff semifinal in 2019, and they also lost to Georgia in the college football playoff semifinal Rose Bowl in 2018. One of the best games of the century. And they struggle against SEC teams, but they aren't exactly blown away. Oklahoma had a lead against Alabama in 2019 and they blew it. Oklahoma had a lead against Georgia in 2018 and they blew it. They do play well against teams, but I don't see Oklahoma winning the SEC anytime soon. I mean, obviously they could, But anytime soon, I think they need to adjust and get recruits knowing that they're playing in the SEC. I need, I think they need maybe the next 3, 4 years. They're probably not going to win the SEC. They have to put, considering Alabama's there, Florida, Georgia, LSU, Texas A&M. Now Texas hasn't been the team that they used to be. Back in 2009, when they were in the BCS championship, they were amazing. But ever since, they haven't been that good. Although they do have a new head coach in Steve Sarkisian, which I do think he can turn around the program. And them moving to the SEC is going to help recruiting. That's kind of why Alabama, LSU, Georgia, all these teams, and Texas A&M recruit well is because they're in the SEC. The SEC is a powerful and dominant conference. Who wouldn't want to play in there? So Texas is going to benefit from joining, as well as Oklahoma. Oklahoma and Texas's recruiting is going to be better than it is in the Big 12, and they might have a chance to get into the national title a lot easier. So I do see that working out for them. Texas has to play Arkansas this year. That's the SEC team from the West, currently from the West. Obviously, I think they're going to win that game. I don't think Texas is down that bad where they're going to lose to Arkansas, but they're going to get their familiar. They're going to get familiar with at least one team from the SEC, being Arkansas. But until these two teams play a full SEC schedule, I don't know if they're going to be. They're not going to have a problem with the bottom feeders, obviously, like Vanderbilt, and they're not going to have a problem with those teams. Vanderbilt, Tennessee, South Carolina. They're not going to have problems with these teams. Arkansas, Mississippi State. They're going to sweep them. But when they have to play Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M, maybe Ole Miss, Florida, Georgia, Missouri at sometimes. When they have to play these teams, that's when it's going to struggle. And until they play these teams on a regular basis, we're not going to know how well these two teams are going to do in the SEC. Maybe Oklahoma, there are two possibilities that could definitely happen. Oklahoma could go in and win the SEC the first year, or Oklahoma could go in and struggle year in and year out for a couple of years, and then they can get a run for the SEC. Both things are possible. I don't see Oklahoma winning the championship for the SEC anytime soon. I do see them going for it, though. They can give Alabama a run for their money. I definitely see that. Texas is on the rise. They or on the downfall. It depends on how Steve Sarkisian works around this. But Texas is they just got to get back on their feet until they can challenge Oklahoma and the rest of the SEC powerhouses, specifically being Alabama, LSU, and Georgia. I think those are my top three teams in the SEC. With all these graphics coming out of Texas and Oklahoma's record against the SEC, that doesn't matter. Yes, they both have winning records against the SEC. You can argue that's Texas and Missouri from when they were in the Big 12. You can argue that. But it doesn't matter anymore. Records don't matter. Records matter only when you join this conference. They were outside of the conference. Now they had to play in the SEC. That record no longer matters because now these two teams are joining the conference. So obviously they're going to have to do a whole SEC schedule, and we're going to see how well they fare. I see Oklahoma doing pretty well. Texas not so much. Texas is probably going to have a rocky start, and Oklahoma is probably going to get a good start because they have to play all these teams. Depending on how the conference alignment works, I don't know what teams these two teams are going to be playing each year and how the shuffling is going to work with the opposite um, alignment. I don't know if the SEC is going to go with the four pods or the East and the West like they do, or they're going to change to a South and the North. If you did the East and the West, you would have to move Alabama and Auburn to the West, I mean East, and push the West farther out to Texas and Oklahoma, and probably put Missouri in the West. I don't know because you would have to still keep these rivalries. You can't mess up rivalries like Alabama and Tennessee LSU and Florida. You can't mess up these rivalries. Georgia and Auburn, you can't mess these up. So you have to kind of shuffle the alignment for the SEC in consideration of these rivalries. But obviously, this whole thing was money driven, and this is going to have some great matchups for basketball and football and many other sports. Because Oklahoma is great at softball. Oklahoma is great in just about every sport, to be honest. They're good at basketball. So is Texas. Texas is a good basketball program as well. And you have teams like Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, and Alabama apparently is good in basketball now. You have all these teams. This is gonna put good matchups for every sport, especially basketball, baseball, softball, and football. You're gonna see matchups you might not have seen until years to come. Obviously, Alabama and Texas play each other in the near future, in football, but we can now see Alabama, Texas maybe playing each other every year or every other year. Same with Oklahoma. That's just some good rivalries and matchups we never get to see. And now we get to see maybe every year or every other year. It's just, this will be, many people say it's bad for college football. I say it's good for college football because these matchups will be great. It'll be revenue generating, which is what is driving this. Um, So it'll be great for college football. Many more viewers are kind of probably going to tune in to watch these games because Alabama, Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas. Texas and Texas A&M can be a rivalry again. That's what we all want to see, even though Texas dominates the rivalry. We can still see how well Texas A&M, who is doing good in the SEC, does against Texas now. We can see how well this rivalry balances itself out. Oklahoma can create new rivalries with the teams in the SEC. It's just a it's just a mix up of everything that I think will be good. More interesting matchups. Because I mean, you can't argue. Who wants to watch Texas and TCU every year? Who wants to watch Texas and Kansas State every year? And Oklahoma and Kansas State, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. That's not a good rivalry. Oklahoma dominates Oklahoma State. So I think this will be good for college football, good for other sports, college basketball, college baseball, softball. I just think it'll be good for sports and good for revenue for the SEC and these individual universities. And with the new NIL coming in, it'll be revenue generating for the players since they can license their logos. And being in the SEC, that'll probably make a lot more money than they would in the Big 12. But yeah, that's my opinion. This is going to be interesting. I would like to see if these two teams would make a move for it to begin early, or they would honor their contract and only join come 2025. But yeah, this is my opinion. No one asked for it, and there you go. And I will see y'all in the next video.